Tēnā koutou katoa. It's gone 9 o'clock. No mai, haere mai ki Whangarei Takiwā for Ratu Whitu Mahuru. That's Tuesday, the 7th of September. Warm welcome to everybody. I'm going to ask Councillor Peters to open our meeting with karakia.
We bind ourselves together in this forum. We bind ourselves together in this dialogue. We bind to rangi, to the heavens above us. We bind to papatunuku, the earth that lies below us. We bind ourselves to the foundations of enlightenment. So bind together, let us do it. Whakamau te wānanga, whakamaua te kōrero, whakamaua ki a rangi nui e tui honei, whakamaua ki a papatunuku e takoto akine, whakatina ki te tumo o te māramatanga, tina, huiei taiki.
Ngā mihi nui, Councillor Peters. Councillors, we are all present, so there's no need for any apologies today. We have two items on our meeting in the open portion of our meeting, and then one in our public excluded business section. The item 4.1 is our first item on the agenda, and it is the Representation Review 2021 final proposal. The recommendations are long, very, very long. They cover almost 3 pages. So I'm going to resist the urge to read them all out because I think that would take half of our meeting time. However, I will ask for a mover and seconder for the recommendations. Councillor Cockerillo is moving and Councillor Reid is seconding. Over to you, Councillor Cockerillo.
Thank you, Worship. Again, we've been through the discussions many times. We've been through the different agenda, as you can see there. And I also noticed that Dale Oskoskis came on, and I welcome him as well while he's here. But Your Worship, as the councillors have read, we've gone through the discussions, and I think it's now time to get it through to the next phase.
Thank you, Councillor Cockerillo. Any debate? Councillor Comment.
I just wanted to first a question of number 7. It says, notes that some submissions opposed to the initial proposal be declined on the following grounds. That to me doesn't sound right. I mean, why are we declining submissions? I mean, I can understand the basis around why what the context would be changed in regards to this what we have put forward. But why is it written as we're declining submissions?
Thank you for that question. Rob, are you able to answer that or pass on to an appropriate person for that wording? Thank you.
Yeah, so my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, team here, is that decline doesn't mean you don't accept that the submission's there. It means that you're not doing what the submission says, asks for. So that's the context of it as I understand it.
Okay, that could be confusing, as it is kind of confusing for me too. Another question I was going to ask, and this is a bit of a cheeky one, are we going to change our oath going with the wards rather than the whole Whangarei District Council, the whole of the Whangarei District, to work with this? Because
point of order.
Councillor Cockerillo, I was going to address that with Councillor Collins. Certainly not. There's no intention to change the oath.
Okay, and final one, is it possible to make an amendment to go at large? Because even though it wasn't consulted on, that's one of the reasons we didn't get people asking it, though we did get a lot of people speaking about it through the when people could talk to us, as well as the fact that they did note in their submissions to go at large as well.
My understanding, Councillor Collins, is that an amendment could be moved today. However, and then it would go out for public notice, and we already, if this motion passes, we're already in breach of the plus or minus 10% rule. So it is treated as an appeal. It will go straight to the Local Government Commission. So as a question, you have only asked questions so far. So you are able to move an amendment to the proposal.
Can I move an amendment to the proposal, please, that we go at large with the 13 mayor councillors? I'd rather do it now than have to bring it back to another meeting, and it's.
Councillor Connaught, just procedurally, you're moving a motion that do you have anything in writing, anything prepared?
No.
As an amendment? Rob, I'm wondering if you can help us with because there was an amendment moved at the previous meeting, and that had 10 councillors, 2 Māori ward general councillors, 2 Māori ward, and the mayor elected at large.
Yeah, so Carolyn will possibly have that, but Councillor Connaught, is that what you intended? What was discussed at the previous
basically what we discussed last time, just to throw it out, just for another quick bit. I don't want it to make it too long, but just to make another option for this one, because it is a split council. It was a split decision, and there has been a lot of support out there.
Before you discuss it, I need a seconder for that amendment. Do I have a seconder for the amendment? Councillor Cutforth. Councillor Connaught, you may now speak to your amendment.
Cool, thank you. I'm bringing this up because we didn't consult on this particular issue, but people did submit their feedback on this. They do want to see it at large. This allows people to have more of a voice on who represents them in council. We have a ward system which splits people up arbitrarily into little boxes when we're already almost 100,000 people in Whangarei, and I'm already representing and supporting people outside of my ward. There were people, predominantly the amount of people that actually came and spoke on their submissions, spoke on at large. Te Karearea themselves also spoke at large, and to be fair too, as they're at large, then it would make it quite simple to make it at large for us as well. The oath, we are all people of, well, we're here to represent the people of Whangarei, and we're only being represented by, well, we're being voted in by a small select amount of people, and we're meant to represent everybody. So personally, when I came on board to support everybody. I have a little bit of knowledge about all pieces around Whangarei, and just because I live in one area doesn't mean I don't know other issues that other areas, don't know the issues that other areas have. With the fact that we have a 3-page report, the recommendations that take 3 whole pages to get through, when if you look on the second page, it takes 3 lines to make up the at-large for the Maori wards, which is absolutely so many details that to draw lines around one road, another road, it's absolutely insane. We're so connected these days. There's so many people out there. Right now, we're all coming in via a Teams meeting virtually in our own little pockets of paradise that we have. And it's just, to me, logical. It's one of those things. I'd rather be able to have a vote on more people to represent me around the whole district. I wouldn't necessarily vote for just this area here. I support community issues out wide. I have supported what I can along graveled, unsealed roads and whatnot. We all have to deal with these issues. I don't see that we need to limit people's choices to 1 or 2 people when we could actually allow people to have a good voice on who they actually are represented in council. I've spoken on this before, where we have limited choices. If one candidate stands in one ward, you can't vote for that person because you're limited to the people in your own ward. You have to vote for the 4 people that you fit up into that square, whereas you might feel that 3 people outside of your ward may have been more suitable. Personally, I would have voted for, in the last election. I would have voted for a whole lot of other people around the other areas, because the choices that I had were I had 13, and there was a whole lot more that were possibilities. I support the people and respect the people that I work alongside, but personally, I would have chosen a few different people.
Your Worship, point of order, please.
Your point, Councillor Coquerello?
That we are relitigating a thing which we've already gone through.
Councillor Coquerello, Councillor Connop is perfectly within his rights to debate the motion, the amendment that he has. I haven't heard anything that he's saying that's not debating the issue. Carry on, Councillor Connop.
I was almost finished. Thank you very much. And with all due respect, I just want to be able to make sure that people have their voice heard. I have heard of another petition that probably won't have been handed in or gotten anywhere, but I've seen that there was about 41 signatures on it for at-large support. So I just wanted to bring that up as a point that I've seen. And yeah, the system itself isn't working.
Thank you, Councillor Connop. Anybody else wish to speak to the amendment? Councillor Peters.
I support this amendment because this is, I think, a cleaner and better way of electing councillors. I agree with Councillor Connop that we represent our whole community, not just one section of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peters. Anybody else wishing to speak to the amendment? Councillor Cutforth.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, I'm supporting Councillor Connop's amendment too, and it's really I think Councillor Coquerello will say we're relitigating issues, and we are, because we have a council that has got quite split and divided views on this. And the reason I'm supporting the amendment is, even though we didn't consult on it, and I think it's unfortunate that we didn't, and we didn't because a majority of councillors did not support it, but a significant minority of councillors did. But even though we didn't consult on it, people have been quite openly concerned that we didn't consult on an at-large option. And I think that's another reason for us to bring it back to the table. It does, as Councillor Connop say, give voters the opportunity to vote for a whole council. So in that way, I think it's more democratic, and it's actually more likely to get better community engagement, I think, in council elections, because people may not know one or two people who are standing in their current individual wards, but they're likely to know some names across the district. And once they know that, then they become more engaged. And I think that just means that we will have a better turnout in terms of local elections. I think we've seen from the current discussion we had around the ward boundaries just how we're shoehorning, if you like, different areas into different wards to try and get sort of even numbers per ward. And I think that just really shows that the ward system is becoming really out of date for a district that we have now. And I would challenge some of the supposed rural councillors, if you like, to really consider the areas that they are now representing, and whether those areas are in fact far more urban than farming communities, if you like. Some of the pockets that we see in some of the rural wards, I think, are clearly have more in favour with the urban area of Whangarei than they do with farming communities. And I think that's just the nature of what is happening in Whangarei in terms of the growth. So to answer something that Councillor Innes has said in the past, that we don't want too much change because change is going to be imposed on us in the future, I think this is a real example of us showing that we are fit for purpose for the future, and that we're prepared to make some changes that will stand us in good stead for the future. So that's why I'm supporting Councillor Connop's amendment, and I really hope councillors this time round will support this. Thank you.
Thank you, you, Councillor Cutforth. Councillor Murphy.
Thank you. I hope you can hear me. My connectivity is a little bit iffy today, so you can hear me okay?
Carry on, please. Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, good. Okay, no, I'd like to speak in support of Councillor Connop's amendment. I think it's really exciting that we could have people standing in the next elections to really represent the whole district. I think it's quite educational for voters, but also for candidates. I think it would clarify for voters the fact that when people do stand for council, that they will be there to work for the whole district. I think at the moment, and I was actually the same, before I stood for council, I understood that when I voted for my local ward councillor, that they would be working for me and they're really to do my bidding and the bidding of my ward. I didn't really understand the bigger picture, and that, you know, it took the whole council working together as a team to make change. So I think it would be exciting for people not only to be able to vote for their whole council, but also to understand that the ward councillor is not there to, that councillors are there to represent people's views and interests, but not there to just push the barrow of an individual ward, which I think is something that a lot of people are confused about. And I think that going to at large would clarify that for people. The only argument that I have heard against the at-large system, which did concern me originally, was that you may end up with a whole lot of councillors all living perhaps in one small area or along one road. But I think when people do stand, and in their profile statement, they do explain where they live. And I think voters will see, and that will be something that they are aware of, and they will take care to vote for people who live, you know, across the district. I know that when I vote, I would be looking to see where people lived, and I would be selecting people, you know, not just on their
Point of
anyway, I'll
order,
just
Your
leave
Worship.
To cut forth a point of order.
I think, the point of order really is that even at the moment, councillors can all live in the same road. They don't have to live in the wards that they are elected into.
Thank you, Councillor Cutforth. Yes, of course, people don't need to live in the ward they stand for. Councillor Murphy.
Exactly. So the whole thing, it just goes to show that the whole ward system is quite irrelevant. So I definitely support the amendment today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murphy. Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Your Worship. When I entered into this political scene, I went in eyes wide open. I did a bit of homework on it, didn't just blaze on in there without finding out what the story really was. Now, we've got tens of thousands of people out there who are obviously the happy majority and silent, because the way things are, they are more than satisfied with the system. Now, under representing the district or your ward, we are under oath, and that states that we will support the Whangarei District. But if you do not maintain that connection back to your ward, you then endanger the whole system. You are not being, for want of a better word, parochial enough to uphold the wishes and the wants of your voters or your ratepayers, as the case may be. We've debated this long and hard, and it failed to pass at the last meeting. And honestly, I think we are just trying to reburn the candle, and the wick is gone. We made the call last meeting that we would go with the ward system. So that's where my vote's going to lie today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reid. Councillor Innes.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll first of all start with the comment from Councillor Cutforth, and it is a period of change, and this change has been brought on the current review through the Māori representation in the wards. So, but in the background, what we have is local government review. And I feel quite conflicted in terms of going forward. I can see that where we take the oath for the district, and we're very much there in terms of a ward, representing the Whangarei Heads ward, which is coastal and increasingly urban. I can remember the days that it was rural. The considerations of community of interest are at the forefront, and part of that is that when we look at our district as a whole, we find we have quite a diversity of community of interests. So I think that that's one key aspect. The other one that I was very mindful of was access by the community to elected representatives. And as a single ward representative, I've taken time in terms of Friday mornings or early morning around 7:30 to meet residents at the local CAF. So it's been one where I feel that being a ward representative, you're able to be quite accessible to your community. However, when we start looking at district considerations, I often find that being the sole representative of a ward has its real limitations, because you're in a situation where you are seen as advocating for your ward. And just one simple example I'll give you is just pull off or pull over areas on the Whangarei Heads Road, which is something that I've advocated for the last 7 years and have not been able to get traction on it. And it's something that's at the forefront of the community. So when you start looking at the wider representation, in terms of the district, I feel that community boards are very much would need to be a component of that to represent the local interest. And the other part that's coming through really is the whole placemaking under the RMA, which is involving community and starting to look at community getting involved. So I'm still working this through, and I'm got an open mind, and I'll be listening to the future debate on the subject. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Innes. Any further discussion on the amendment? Councillor Martin.
Yes, thank you. I've been elected on the ward system for a number of years. And when we get in there, we swear an oath to represent the whole district. How many rural people would have a high enough profile to get elected into council if there's a big business put their money into it in town, or any other group get together and do it? We haven't got a hope. But when you're in the local community, the people know you. They ring me up and they say, we elect you to fix it. We want you to do it. And I can show you the books full of the people that have phoned me hundreds of times. Not all the time I agree with them, but I always put their point forward. And another interesting thing is I'm elected on the ward system. Then I'm appointed to the Regional Transport Committee, where I have to treat all of the people in Northland, look at all their issues and deal with the whole lot of them. On the Northland Road Safe Trust, we deal with everybody, the issues, and everyone all around Northland. This ward system is merely a means of getting people in there onto council so they can represent and have contact with everybody. I go to open only all over the place for meetings. It's really time consuming, but that's the commitment you make. As the infrastructure chair, I go all over the district and look at problems or help them with problems or go for drives with staff to have a look at issues all over the district, everywhere. Big major jobs, small jobs, all sorts of things. We go and have a look and do it. And that it doesn't matter how the fact is that I wouldn't be elected if I was in town. I'm sure of it. Not that I'm definitely going to continue, but I believe that the rural people need to select a person to represent them. And I agree with Councillor Innes. He's done an incredible job out there of pushing for that road. And I'm really disappointed that we haven't been able to line up the funds to do those roads, those passing lanes. They need to be done. But we can keep working on it. I've spoken to a lot of people since our last meeting, including a group of them, about at large. Not one of them was supportive. Nobody. They didn't even know that that was coming up or an option. And so this is a bit of a hijack as far as the public is concerned, because as Councillor Cutforth pointed out, we didn't even let the people know that this was an option to vote for or not. So I believe that we should carry on with the same as we are. If we're going to make significant changes like this, we need to alert the public to it, and we need to let them have their say on the issue, not just carry on like we have been bringing things up. We've discussed this almost to distraction. So I won't be supporting the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Deeming.
Thank you, Your Worship. It seems to me from the comments from more urban-based councillors that the request for at large tends to be coming from the urban area, because as Councillor Martin said, within the rural sector, well, the outside the urban area, they already feel disenfranchised by the amount of progress that happens in the city centre and around the city centre, and feel that they don't have the same degree of influence. And to now take away their right to vote for people that they know, understand and can easily connect with, and who have an understanding of their situation, to me is absolutely wrong. Why is it that the government elects its members based on virtually a ward system? Are they now going to look at Whangarei and say, yay, they're progressive, let's do that? I don't think so. I think the government, whatever rearrangements it makes for local government, will continue with its own method of election. And there's a reason for that. It's because the people that stand in each region understand their region. They can connect with their people. They understand the needs. They understand the motivations. It's not right to say that to discuss a rural ward and an urban ward. Throughout all our wards, we have urban areas. In Bream Bay, I'm privileged to represent an absolute mix. We've got the largest industry, we've got the poorest areas, we've got the richest areas, we've got rural areas, we've got rural environments, urban environments, we've got a total absolute mix of everything within the one area. And I would have to say that I think the Whangarei Heads area, the Hikurangi area, even the Mangakahia area with going into Mangatapiri, Manu, we all have urban mixtures within our wards. I think it would be absolutely denigrate the rights of our people to allow voting across the region where obviously the numbers count. If you were to include Auckland in the Whangarei region, we'd be governed from Auckland. And I have to say that our outside urban area wards don't want to be governed from Whangarei. They want to be governed across the district and have their own representation there. There is no way that I would ever support at large, regardless of the letters to the advocate from self-interested people, regardless from the social media from a lot of urban people. I think the rural people outside the urban area deserve to have their say as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Deeming. Councillor Benny.
Yeah, thank you. I hadn't intended to speak today, but I see it's been brought up again, and so I'll be brief. And I think I have changed my mind on this issue as I had stated last debate, and that purely for a couple of reasons. One is the boundary changes that we have imposed on some areas to try and fit the equations. It doesn't make sense to me. That we can just move boundaries to get people in a certain plus or minus a % rate to get them to vote. The biggest factor for me is the fact that the majority of people don't vote. We have around 40%, I think around 40% of people vote. The public are disinterested in it. Is part of that reason, I believe, is that they can't vote for who they want to vote for. And I think that should be an option. So I am supporting the amendment, and I think that we should really give it some serious consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Benny. Any further discussion? I just need to also note that Councillor Cooper is in the meeting, but he's turned his video off because of connectivity issues. So he is still with us, but just not visible on the screen. Councillor Hulse.
Thank you, Your Worship, and it's quite an interesting debate. This I thought we'd put it to bed last week, but here we go again. I just want to point out to everyone that we started this process as an agenda on the 13th of October last year. So it's taken us 11 months to get to this decision, and in the very last minute, in the last meeting, there's a proposal, there's an amendment to actually change what we actually agreed upon on the way forward. If the amendment and the supporters of the amendment were serious, they should have lobbied harder 4 or 5 months ago to make sure that is the option that went before our public. And then the public would have had a really good debate about the pros and cons of going district-wide or retaining the ward system. Now, I speak against the amendment mainly because the ward system over the last few months has shown how strong it is. And that's come down to our debate on the 3 waters. It's come back because all our councillors knew in depth what is happening around our district. And our ward councillors had a good understanding what is happening right across the district. And that is a real plus when we come to a collective decision. The ward system, people go on about representing whoever. Our oath is quite clear, and it's been brought up before. That once you take an oath, you represent everyone anyway, and we should always act as if we would represent every ratepayer in the district on all decisions. So this is just a mechanism to get voted into council. It's served us well, but it's a shame that the supporters of the amendment didn't actually work harder at the beginning of the cycle and get that through, because if we make a change now, the whole process is taken out of our hand. It goes straight to the Commissioner, and we don't even get to decide the future of our ratepayers for our ratepayers, and that's a real shame. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hulse. Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Your Worship. Definitely a interesting debate, and I have come to it with an open mind. It's the fact that it's come up again does to me indicate that there is a very strong desire, and we are split. I acknowledge that. It's also interesting in that since the last debate, I've had several calls, Councillor Deeming, unfortunately, where people say that they can see the benefits of at large, and they are there. There is no doubt about it. I like Councillor Deeming. I feel very privileged to have been voted into the position that I'm in by the Bream Bay ward, you know, which are the people of Portland, Mangapai, Mangakaramea, Ruakaka, Waipu, and you know, it is a real responsibility. Having said that, you are voted in to make hard calls. One of the things that someone said to me today was that if you hear the arguments, you can change your mind. And I've got to confess, as I'm sitting here now, I've heard these arguments. I have the greatest respect for the long-serving councillors that I serve with, and so I find it difficult to speak against some of the things and the points that they have been saying. However, in my mind, I believe that the district is best served by at-large voting, so I will support the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. Councillor Cockerello.
Yes, Your Worship. I'm going to, if I'm allowed to, can I have my right to reply, because I can't see this actually going to go any much further.
You can, Carolyn, can you just advise me on standing orders, the timing for the right of reply for the original motion?
He can take his right of reply when the amendment is put. However, when he's had his right of reply, there's no further discussion. Or he can take it when the motion is, after the amendment's been put and decided, lost or carried, and then have his right of reply then.
Thank you, Carolyn. Well, I'll just speak to the amendment then, shall I? To make it easy. I'm really disappointed from what I'm hearing, councillors, and I'll be straight up with you. You've relitigated this at least 3 times that I can name, and I'm disappointed every single time that you have not encouraged your public to actually get in behind you or anything like this. The ward system has been working and has been working perfectly. The public understand it. The public are voting on that. However, if you start putting it at large, you will confuse your public. You will turn around and make less people voting. That is the issue here. This is not about whether wards or whether voting at large. This is about getting people to vote. When you have a councillor who is active within their ward, they are actively being talked to by their public. The public will vote for them. You start doing it large, you start thinking about how someone who cannot afford to run a campaign over the whole district, and I will exclude anything to do with social media, because not everybody in the rural sector is on social media. Not everyone in the urban sector is on rural or social media.
Councillor Cockerello, I have a point of order.
Yep.
This was brought up before, that not this, what he's saying, just the fact that the cost of this can't be taken into account of everything. We already have the Maori wards going at large, and there are other ways of dealing with this.
Thank you, Councillor Connop. I will just reiterate, this is about representation rather than the actual campaigning. So yeah,
with all due respect, Your Worship, campaigning is all part of the whole process of representation.
Councillor Cockerello, I have ruled on the point of order, which I would like you to have your debate on the representation aspect of it.
And absolutely, Your Worship. And to do that, we talk about voting, we talk about communities of interest. And I have had this discussion with someone who turned around and said, voting at large is the best thing around. And I turned around and said, okay, but not everyone is on the public water system. Not everyone has a sewage system. So how does you have communities of interest when you have people in our community who do not have water going past their gate, do not have sewage, public sewage system? They have got their own septic tanks. They've got everything. So they look at life differently to the way an urban person does. And I'm concerned with this, Your Worship, that this is being pushed by urban councillors. I'm concerned that the urban councillors are pushing to have at large when they know the majority of people who are going to be voting are people who are in the urban area, which means the rural community will get forgotten. And I'm sorry, Councillor Cooper, there is a high possibility if you turn around and vote for the at-large, there is a high possibility that you may not get back in, because the urban will actually...
Councillor Cockerillo, I will caution you against being... this is about the representation review. It's not about the individual councillors and their position. So I caution you against that line of debate.
Your Worship, I'm concerned, and I'll make it very, very clear, I'm concerned that as a mayor, you have allowed this to be relitigated again when we only less than a week ago went through this whole discussion and the amendment was lost. So I am concerned that you are allowing this to be relitigated. I'm concerned with your position on this as well, because this is very, very detrimental to the council, and a dysfunctional council as his. I'm concerned with the path this is going down. And I be straight up. This is very, very upsetting to the public, because they are seeing us relitigate something which we already made the call on. So look, there is no way I will vote for at large, because it is absolutely ridiculous to the way people are dealing with their communities. We need to be talking to our individual communities. We need to be involved in our individual communities. And the only way to do that is by ward way. So I agree. Once we're voted on, we now represent the whole community. But it is that which is getting voted on, which is the important part, so that you can get your communities behind you. I'm sorry, Your Worship, I'm really concerned with this, because it is really upsetting the way this council is going around relitigating the same process over and over and over, just so that they can get their way.
Thank you, Councillor Cockerillo. Councillors, I can absolutely assure you that what we are doing today is perfectly within the bounds of our decision-making process. Dale, I wonder if you can just give us any advice on where we are at and where we're at today. It may be helpful for you to just give us your feedback. I can't see you. You may be on mute, or you may not be part of the meeting. I'll just give you another few seconds. Okay, that's unfortunate. So, councillors, I will be speaking to the amendment, and this is difficult because, as has been pointed out, this is not what we put into our initial proposal. When we have been through this very lengthy process, one of the options that was put forward was for councillors to be elected at large, for there to be a general ward, Māori ward, and the mayor. The proposal that was put forward at our deliberations meeting last week was slightly variant to the original concept that was put forward at, I think it was the Te Kāri area briefing, and there were a smaller number of councillors, and I think from memory it was 8, so there were 6 general, 2 Māori and the mayor, and 4 community boards. So that was the preferred option from our hapu partners, Te Kāri area. Then last week at our deliberations meeting, there was an amendment put forward for 10 councillors and 10 general, 2 Māori and the mayor, so making a total council of 13. To me, that has huge advantages in that an uneven number of councillors, I've spoken of this before, makes it less likely that there is a split council. You will generally always get an outcome without having for the chair to use or not their casting vote. There has been discussion around the community because of our discussions at our deliberations meeting last week. Clearly there has been an article that was in the paper. There have been letters to the editor. And like many of you, I've been receiving feedback from the wider community with positions both ways. If the original motion is carried, that will be appealed and it will go to the Local Government Commission for a decision, for a final decision. And I think today, if the amendment is successful, then it will go to there will be appeals and it will go to the Local Government Commission for their decision. So part of what I've been thinking about is what is the likely outcome for either scenario that goes to the Local Government Commission. What are they going to take into account? And they, under the Local Electoral Act, we need to show that we have taken into account the principles being representative and substantive electoral participation in local elections and polls. I wish it were more than the 40%. Fair and effective representation for individuals and communities. Reasonable and equal opportunities to vote and nominate or be nominated as candidates. And public confidence in and public understanding of local electoral processes. I think we can all agree that there's a significant number of people in our community who take no interest in local elections. They get the voting papers, they go straight, to the little round tin, and that's really unfortunate because this is such an important part of decision making in our district, and I do really think that by having a different system, it would encourage more people to participate. I think it would give people the option. I'm conscious at the moment we've got 2 councillors who are the only representative of their ward, and people in those wards can only vote for one person and the mayor. We'll have a situation, whichever way this goes, where people on the Māori electoral roll will only be able to vote for 2 councillors and the mayor. So I've been looking at, under the ward system, the proposed changes for the urban general ward for 5 councillors, so people who live, and that by far the biggest population of our district lives in the urban area. So for those people, they will be able to influence the selection of 5 people plus the mayor. And under the ward system, there would still be a variance between 1, 2, and 5. So I definitely do not take into account anything around campaigning, but I have had a think about the impact of having a very long list of people on, if it were a general ward, and the list of candidates would be very long, and people would then have their opportunity to go through a great big long list and choose the people that they believe represent their views. And that will vary between voter. So there's no guarantee that if the 10 people that you vote for are going to be the ones that form the next council. And that is the vagaries of the voting system. It happens even now with the ward system. I disagree with some of the commentary to say this is an urban-rural split. I think we've heard from councillors across the district that they've got an open mind about looking at a change. I do think this is an opportunity for us to effect change. I won't be my name won't be on the list of voters, of candidates in the next election. I think that's been made very clear. So again, I can look at this from a perspective of seeing what will be the best for our community in the long run. And I do think this is the time to effect that change. So I will be supporting the amendment, and we shall see how the vote goes. I think Councillor Golightly, did you wish to speak to the amendment?
Thank you, Your Worship. No, not at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, Councillor Cockerill, did you wish to take your right of reply, because I will be putting the amendment?
Yes, I'll take my right of reply, Your Worship. I think that the best thing we can do for our public is actually to be with our public, and you've highlighted on the respects of being in a ward and voting when people have on the list of people on the voting list, and that is what it's all about. I think about going out to the McLeod's Bay area, the Waipu area, the Ruakaka area, the Hikarangi area, when you actually have the elections and you actually have the candidates there. I think about if we ended up having 30 candidates in that list and them all having to stand up in front of those people at each one of those places. And I think of how long those meetings are going to be. And we have joked many times, especially amongst the urban people, say that there's always more people who turn up at the rural ones than they do in the urban ones. And most of the time in the urban ones, it's more councillors or those want to be in council than the public themselves. So my concern is that you are going to drown out the rural areas. You are going to cause problems amongst our community by voting at large. You are going to cause people to get disinterested in our council, disinterested in the fact of what we're trying to achieve, which is actually to get our district going forward. And to do that, I believe the best way to do that was with the ward system, because it allows fair representation across the whole board. I have argued about the Māori wards. I have argued about the fact that we've got 2 Māori candidates, when I know full well that amongst the Māori community, they have made it quite clear that they want to have voting at large. I had questions over that. I said, look, I think wards would be easier because it'd be smaller. They said, no, they will look after themselves. That is fine. That is the decision that they made. My concern is more about the ward councillors at this present moment. And if you want to have fair representation across the board, across the whole district, and you want fair representations of those areas, then the ward system that we've proposed, with the amendments of expanding some of those urban areas, because the urban people have expanded in through the rural world, is the only option that we can do going forward. So I'm disappointed that we are relitigating the same story again and again and again. And I'm disappointed that we've had to go through this process again and again when we have got a short time frame now to get this in, to have the decision made, and then come back to us.
Thank you, Councillor Cockerill. The right of reply has been had. I will now be putting the amendment. Is it possible to have the amendment put on the screen, just so that we know?
I'll be calling for a division, please.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. So those are the recommendations, the amendment. I'm just checking that that's everything that we needed.
Yeah, please confirm.
Thank you. That looks to be everything that we need. So if we can take the screen away, that way I can see the councillors again. Thanks, Emily. So Councillor Martin has called for a division. So I'll ask for those in favour to please raise your hands, and I'll call them out. So I see Councillor Murphy, Councillor Cooper has his hand up, Councillor Connop, Councillor Cutforth, Councillor Peters, Councillor Benny, and myself. Those against: Councillor Golightly, Councillor Martin, Councillor Reid, Councillor Innes, Councillor Hulse, Councillor Cockerillo, Councillor Deeming. What's the bet?
Your Worship, that's 7 for and 7 against.
Oh dear. Okay. Thanks, team, for putting me in this position yet again. I now have the option of using my casting vote or not. If I use my casting vote and I vote in favour of the amendment, then that means that there will be, I'll just need some advice. Dale, are you available to just give me some advice here?
Your Worship, Dale.
Yes, I've been following that.
Thank you, Dale.
Probably not my forte about the use of your casting vote. Caroline might be better, or Emily.
Yeah, I think we established in the last meeting that you can use your casting vote if you want to. If you don't, the amendment fails and we revert back to the original resolution. I think the advice Her Worship may be looking for is around what happens if we have changed the final proposal from the initial proposal in such a significant way, Dale.
Yes, thanks, Emily.
Okay, so yes, council is permitted to make changes. The Act says quite clearly that council must consider all submissions received and may by resolution make such amendments as it thinks fit. So the advice is that if you've got submissions that support the change, that's the first criteria. And I believe that there are 6 submissions that supported a change to the district-wide, then council can change its mind as it sees fit, is the wording under the legislation.
Thank you, Dale. And clearly, if I...
point of order?
Councillor
I have a point of order. I thought that my understanding is that after the right of reply has been held and the vote has been put, that we have to carry on. But we've reached a situation now where one person could change the entire district if they use their vote. I think we need to get some really, I feel for you, Cheryl, but I think we need to get some really good advice on that, because that's the situation. Change everything, one person.
Amazing, eh? Have that power. Councillors, I'm also putting my cap on of the Local Government Commission and how they would see it. And I'm not the Local Government Commission clearly, but it just is it is a factor that I'm considering is how would the Local Government Commission rule on any appeals if we had changed from our initial proposal to the final proposal being quite dramatically different. I take your point, Dale, and indulge me, councillors, because this is actually a really significant decision. So I am working my way through the thinking on it, and we did receive submissions.
Take a 10-minute break.
Yes, I think I will adjourn the meeting for 10 minutes. So can we reconvene, please, at 10:10? Thank you. Take the time to have a cup of coffee.
Oh, just don't stream.
Whichever decision we make, the final decision is likely to be made by the Local Government Commission, mainly because the final proposal that was moved by Councillor Cockerillo has it breaches the plus or minus 10% condition, so it will be it's treated as an appeal. So if the amendment goes through, I would anticipate that it's likely that there will be submissions made which are treated as an appeal, and the Local Government Commission will make the final decision. As you know, I've been a major proponent for change, for a different way of having people elected, because I think that does garner interest in the community into what representation in councils is all about. So I am going to use my casting vote today to vote for the amendment. And I know what that will do is it will raise a lot of interest in our wider community. There will be people who will say that the ward system is better. There will be people who will say, hurrah, at last we've effected a good change. So I look forward to, I've looked forward all the way along actually to being provocative and to be raising the awareness of local democracy in our community. And if this is what it takes, then I am happy to have made this decision today. So that means that the amendment is carried and it becomes the substantive motion, and I will put the substantive motion, and I'm going to call for a division. Thank you, Councillor Cockerillo. Sorry, there was a bit of delay, so I got in first. So, councillors, I'm having trouble with screens freezing a little, so I'm going to ask you to hold your hand up and hold them steady so that I can do the for's and against. So, those in favour of the motion, please raise your hands.
Your Worship, before you do that,
Yes,
understanding orders that I mentioned before under 24.4, when debate resumes on items of business that have been previously adjourned, all members are entitled to speak on the items. So it's opened it up again, understanding orders. So I make that point.
I don't think there was a formal motion to adjourn.
Always spinning on the top of a pin. Yeah. I will allow any further debate if anybody wishes to speak.
I'll speak. I just think it's a very unusual process we're going through at the moment. I think once the right of reply has been taken, it's customary and it's been a practice for all the time I've been on council that the vote continues, and we don't know what avenues, what information you've received since then, but it goes contrary to open democracy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hulse. So I've moved the substantive motion, and a division was called for by the Mayor.
There's also a question there from. There's also Councillor Cooper.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I've just raised my hand from when Her Worship asked for the people to raise their hands. I haven't taken it down. Okay. I'll take it down. Now.
So I'll those in favour of the amendment, please raise your hands.
Put it back up.
So Councillor Cooper, Councillor Connop, Councillor Benny, Councillor Murphy, Councillor Cutforth, Councillor Peters, and Her Worship the Mayor. Those against, Councillor Cockerillo, Councillor Reid, Councillor Golightly, Councillor Martin, Councillor Hulse, Councillor Deeming. Is that everybody? And those abstaining? Councillor Innes. Carolyn, can you give us the result of that one?
Seven for and 6 against. So the substantive, the motion is carried.
Thank you, Carolyn. Councillors, that brings us to the next agenda item, which is the approving the trustee for the Northland Event Centre Trust on page 41 of our agenda. Do I have a mover for the recommendation that the council approves the trust deed for Northland Event Centre 2021 Trust? Councillor Hulse is moving that, and a seconder. Councillor Benny. Thank you. Councillor Hulse.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. This motion is all about getting a new deed in place for a new trust that's being set up, and it was asked to do so by councils last year. There's been very, very few changes made to the original trust deed, and although some changes have been made that I don't agree with, I still think it's the way to go forward. Some of the things that have been added, there's a few minor points that have been added that I find a bit controversy, but bit strange in some ways. But I don't think it's going to damage the deed at all. One of that is to follow the Whangarei District event strategy, when actually the stadium wasn't even involved in that, putting that strategy together. Wasn't even asked for a comment. So I found that a bit annoying, really. But overall, there's been very, very few structural changes. But we have a couple of minor changes now allowed people from outside the Whangarei, the Northern region, to stand as trustees. So there are a few changes like that, but overall, pretty sound documentation. And we didn't have too many clashes between the council, senior management, ourselves putting it, going through the whole lot, because basically the same document that's just modified for this new trust going forward. So it's a workable document. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hulse. Any further debate? If not, I'll put that motion. Those in favour, aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried.
Good.
That brings us to the end of our open portion of the council agenda. We do have an item in the public excluded session. I will need a motion for us to move into confidential. Have somebody move that. Councillor Innes is moving and Councillor Murphy is seconding. Those in favour, aye. Carried. Thank you, councillors, for your attendance and to members of the community who've been watching our live streaming. We will now just wait until the live streaming is completed